All right. Welcome, everybody, today to one of my favorite episodes that I've recorded for By the Blocks Blockcast. I have one of my amazing friends and talented professionals and authors here with me, Hady Mendez. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. Thank you, Krystal.
Good, good. So, quick background on Hattie and I. I met her just randomly at my live podcast event that we had July 5th at Café Colmado. It was amazing. The topic was independence in Puerto Rico, and Hattie came and instantly we connected. She told me about her book. And when I heard the title, Calladita No More, I was hooked instantly. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Hattie, and let you introduce yourself and tell the audience about you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Krystal. Thanks for having me. Hi, audience. I'm Hady Mendez. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I am a Latina speaker. I'm an ERG coach or an employee resource group coach and advisor. And I'm also a best-selling author, and I'm very excited about my upcoming book, Calladita No More. And anyway, I'm looking forward to today's conversation. It was fortuitous. That was like kind of not last minute, but kind of last minute. And it was because that I went to that July 5th event because I was someone had told me about the coffee shop, the Colmado.
Yep, Café Colmado.
Yeah, Calmado. Someone told me about the store and told me that it was Puerto Rican owned and like, oh, check it out because they always have events there. And I saw that and I was like, I don't even know what that's event is about, but I'm going. And it ended up that I met you and I ended up meeting another couple that I really enjoyed. And it just ended up being a really good, fun day.
Love that. I love that. I'm going to pause here 1 second because I forgot to put do not disturb on my phone. So I'll
Okay.
edit this out of it. Don't worry about that. All right. So let's jump into the book and some questions about the book.
Okay.
Like I said, the title really got to me. When I saw it, I was like, I don't want to be calladita no more. Exactly. This is how I feel. I need to read this
Girl,
book.
all of us.
All of us. I don't think we were ever born to be calladita. So can you share what inspired Calladita No More and why you feel like now is the right moment to have launched this book for you?
Yeah, I would say in terms of inspiration, it really came out of the work that I do with employee resource groups. So, kind of to bring everybody up to speed and give everybody the context, I was like a corporate person for many, many years, like probably over 25 years. And I worked in like banks and tech companies. And, oftentimes the only Latina in the room or one of the few Latinas in the room or few women of color in the room. And, so or woman in general, really, because in tech and financial services is very male dominated. And so I had experiences, many. And when I got laid off back in 23 and I started my own business and I started doing employee resource group, like coaching and talking to employee resource group leaders. Often these are underestimated people in the workplace. Many of them are like you and me. They're like Black, brown, queer. They identify in some other way that, often makes them underestimated. And usually, culturally speaking, like I would identify, and I think you might too, like we get these messages and these belief systems, we develop them very early on that are like, well, mejor no diga nada. I don't know how many times my mother told me, mejor no diga nada, which translates to, it's better just don't say anything. You don't like it, but if you remember, that is another saying in Spanish. And it's like, if you don't like something, doesn't mean that you have to say something. Just like, don't kind of like let it roll off or just it's better
Mhm.
not to cause friction or tension or anything. And I think that mindset is not good. That doesn't work out very well in corporate spaces or really in any professional setting because, sometimes you do have to disagree and sometimes you have to offer a different point of view. And sometimes what you have to say is important and it might actually a result in like moving in a different direction because you have information or like an insight that other people haven't thought of. And I think oftentimes we do bring those insights that are quite different. And so if we're not speaking up, we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're doing the companies we work for a disservice. And so anyway, I think that's where Calladita No More was born. Like, I'm like, I think there's enough here that I feel like I can share with people like me and I can share with anybody else who wants to read the book, because I think it's going to be insightful for anybody who picks it up. But I do hope that other Latinas and women of color pick it up because I wrote it specifically for us.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it has so many layers that resonate, not just with the corporate side, because I work in corporate. So I completely, related to the message of the book and what you wanted to get across. But I also think there's a layer of, again, being a Latina, and then on top of that, being a woman. And I think it's all of those, you get that message of, just let it be. You don't have to be so loud. You don't have to say everything. You don't have to speak on everything. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. You're prettier when you're quieter. And
Yeah.
I've actually been told that in the middle of board meetings. Oh, well, thank
Wow.
goodness she's pretty, with literally a tap on my head after, voicing my opinion about something.
Well, can I say something about that? Because, okay,
Yes.
my name is Hady, and it's short for Hadila. Hadila in Spanish, Hady in Espanol. But Hady sounds like Hottie. And when
Right.
I was in sales, I had men all the time being like, oh, your name is Hady? Yeah, you are Hady. I'm like, I don't even know you. And you probably half of y'all are married. Like,
Mhm.
what an inappropriate thing to say. Like, that's a very inappropriate thing. And what am I supposed to say to that, Krystal? So I was like, oh, thank you. I was like, that's ridiculous. La confianza and the nerve for you to say something like that to me. And how was I supposed to respond to that in that moment? And a lot of times it was people that were my customers. So yo tampoco no podía hablarle feo, so I would just be like, okay, thank you. And I was like, not appropriate. Yeah, there were that, by the way, that story did not make it to the book. So that's a bonus one. That's a bonus story for your listeners. But I do share other stories of things that happened to me. And some of the stuff is like, you can't even it sounds made up. It sounds fake, but it's not fake. I guarantee you, I promise you that every story I shared is a true story. And it never should have happened. And I hope that it doesn't happen to other people. I hope that, the readers and people that are listening to us now, that they understand that they have the agency to make decisions about their life, to choose to speak up when they feel strongly about something, and that they're not waiting for permission, because no one's giving you permission. I have a whole chapter in the book called Nadia is Coming to Save You, because no one is coming to save us, baby. It's like, we gotta figure it out.
That's right. Absolutely.
Put our big girl panties on and...
Exacto. And that's the part of it that I love, is that you take your own personal story, like not just your corporate story, but also your personal story as a Puerto Rican, as someone from the diaspora, your experiences with the island. So talk to me about your journey as a Puerto Rican in the diaspora, and how did that help shape this book? Because I think that's very important.
Yeah. Well, I talk about Puerto Rico a lot. I dedicate the book to my mother, who obviously, and I talk about the town she's from. She's from Aguadilla in Puerto Rico. So Aguadilla gets a little love early on in the process. And incidentally, my father's from Moca, but I didn't mention Moca. I don't always own Moca, because then people be calling me Mocosa, and I can't with that. But anyway, I use it so I start every chapter starts with a refrán. And my love for refranes started at a very early age. My mother and my father always use refranes, especially my mother. She had a refrán for everything. Like, you bring a friend over, she's like, dime con quién anda y te diré quién eres. Like, she had so many.
Wait, let's backtrack 1 second. For our diaspora people who may not know or understand what a refrán is, can you explain it to them?
Yeah. So a refrán or a dicho, those terms are used interchangeably. They're like sayings. So let's say in English, a saying might be like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And, that's implying that, like, children are, sometimes children are similar to their parents, or like when people are related, it's like, yep, like you can see how they're related because they do something a certain way or whatever. So that's what refranes are. And usually they're like lessons. And it's like, yo no soy monedita de oro para, I don't even know how that one ends, but it's like, basically it's like, it's teaching you something. It's a teaching. It's a wisdom. It's something that guides you, or that might guide how you look at the world. And so, para lo gusto se hicieron los colores is another one that I really like. My mother always used to say that. And it's like, that one is like, everybody likes something different. So like, do you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about what somebody else is doing, because everybody has a different preference. And so those are things that I think I took for granted. If now we're talking, going back to my identity as a Puerto Riqueña, I think I took that for granted growing up, because I always had that around me. And I don't think A, everybody grows up with that. And B, I don't think even I realized how much those refranes shaped how I looked at the world, or how I showed up, or, my attitude. Like, my mother always used to say, Santo que no me quiere, con no rezar le basta. That was like such another one that she would say a lot. And I didn't understand what she meant by that. And I think as I got older, I was like, so like, if people are not invested in you, you don't need to invest in them. Like, it's, and it's like, it's no harm, no foul. It's nothing personal, but like, you're really not that interested in vibing with me. and it's cool, then I'm going to, go vibe with somebody else because that other person seems to be a little bit more interested in vibing with me. And, it's just like, it's easy. And it's like, okay, well, that decision was made quite easily because it's like, okay, like now I know. And I feel like there were a lot of those things that even I didn't realize has shaped me. And as I was writing the book and looking back and thinking about my family and everything that has affected my journey, I realized that refranes was such an important part of that. And so I was like, they're going everywhere in the book. I use about 25 of them in the book.
I love it. Do you have a favorite?
And I
one?
translate them, by the way.
Yes, I saw that and I appreciate
Girl,
that.
I love them all. I was about to say, yeah, so they're in Spanish first, and then I translate them to English. I would say maybe the one I love the most is, I'm going to say something different because someone asked me this question recently in another podcast. I'm going to give a different answer so I could spread the love. For this one, I'll say, por ti, mañana por mí. And that is how that refrán shows up in my chapter on community. And it translates to today for you, tomorrow for me. And it's this thing of where there's this circle of reciprocity. And it's like, I'm going to do something for you. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on your podcast and I'm going to invite you to my show. Then you're going to bring me to your thing. And then I'm going to invite you to my thing. And we're just going to constantly be finding ways to elevate and amplify each other's voices. And so I love that. That's a very, I think a very powerful image of how community works and how people can show up for each other. So hoy por ti, mañana por mí.
I love it. I love it. That's a really good one. I think that's what we're doing right now, right? Just in meeting, amplifying each other's voices. And
that's what we're doing right now.
Keep on the podcast because people need to know about this. But I love that. I love that the community that I've found within the diaspora is very much about that. So can you give the listeners a little bit of background on where you grew up and how much time you spent in Puerto Rico and that sort of thing?
Of course. So I actually was born in Brooklyn for, FYI. So I guess I'm officially New Rican, although I did obtain my Puerto Rican citizenship recently. So I am a Puerto Rican citizen officially, but, pa que lo sepa.
Eso.
And I grew up with mommy from Aguadilla, papa from Moca. My father was a Jíbaro in every sense of the word. So I actually talk like a Jíbara a little bit in Spanish because that's who raised me, right? So but I remember very early on, I used to say cajo because that's how we say it. And he was like, no lo digas así, you got to say it the right way. No es perro, so it's like, then after they taught me to say it wrong, they were trying to teach me how to say it right. But I grew up in Brooklyn in a very Puerto Rican neighborhood. I grew up in the proyectos. They were called Borinquen Plaza. So Borinquen Plaza, nod to Puerto Rico. Next to Borinquen Plaza was Caribe Gardens, also a nod to Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. I was blocks away from Graham Avenue in Brooklyn, which is La Avenida de Puerto Rico. We had the Red Market, which was a very Puerto Rican. They used to sell gandules in the Red Market. They would sell acapurias in the Red Market. Bueno, can you hear me? All right, no problem. So I was just telling you how I grew up in a neighborhood that had La Avenida de Puerto Rico. We had a record store called San Germán Records. They were, I'm guessing, from San Germán. Even the Korean store had bacalao, the dry bacalao, so we could make bacalaitos. So and when we had the feria, in the summer, we would have the feria. They would sell acapurias, bacalaitos, relleno de papa. We had the cuchifritos. I mean, I grew up in a very Puerto Rican neighborhood, period. My father's shoe store was called El Encanto Shoes, also because La Isla del Encanto. So we were Puerto Rican to the bone. We even had the numerito guy that would come through and take the numeros, and he would hang out in my father's store and have lunch there. But the numerito guy was our guy. So we were very Puerto Rican. I don't know anything different. And I feel like when I was growing up, the other thing that I mentioned in the book is even the chinos, they spoke Spanish and they would make arroco, habichuela, and tostones and chuleta. And you're like, I thought that was Chinese food growing up. I'm like, I didn't know that Chinese food was something else because we would go to the chinos and they all had Spanish food. So very, very Puerto Rican neighborhood, which I'm very grateful for. And only looking back do I realize how Puerto Rican it was. I didn't go to the island a lot when I was younger. I would say when I was 9 or 10, my sister and I went and spent about 6 weeks, one summer. And I pushed for that. I was like, I want to go to Puerto Rico. I was pushing. We went for all of July and half of August. And I remember we stayed with my aunt in Aguadilla and she had vacas and we were scared of the vacas and she had pigs and everything. We were in the campo. So it was not the best experience, but we survived. We survived our experience in Puerto Rico in the country. And then I would say much later. So when I was older, I had some cousins. I had like my whole father's side was there. My mother's side, a little bit of them started moving there. So we would go and visit. And I remember sort of a very pivotal moment was that when I was a professional, I had my customers were Latin America. And I used to go to Puerto Rico all the time for work. If you could believe it, that was the dopest experience of all. And I would show up and I'm like, I'm Puerto Rican. So they were like, all right, you get in, you got your free pass, you're invited to the whatever, asado or the cookout or whatever we're having. And I remember like educating my coworkers and being like, yes, they're going to kiss you, but it's not romantic. So no te haga, it's just like people are friendly and that's how they do. Because everybody was like, oh my God, all the beautiful girls, they're going to kiss us when we walk in. It's like, relax. This doesn't mean they like you. They're just being friendly. But, I remember like teaching my manager and I was like, when we walk in the room, we're going to like talk about a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with work for a little while. And they're going to take coffee orders and there's going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't feel like we're having a meeting, but we'll get there. Anyway, so I was like the expert, which was like a very unique position to be in. And I loved my Puerto Rican customers. I was there all the time. There was a period of like probably like 3 years where I was there like every few months. And that was such a blessing. And I got to see a different side of Puerto Rico in those moments because it was, I had really never spent a lot of time there. So that was like a really special time in my life. And then now I go all the time. I have a cousin that I stay with and, I go to Guaynabo and I have the real like resident experience. Or like I'm in Marshall's, I'm in Costco, I'm like doing in the supermercado and I do very like, I guess, local things, go to the movies and stuff like that. By the way, in the movies, they be selling acapurias too. I went to this movie theater that was like, what is this? I was like, I wish I had this back home. It was so awesome. So anyway, and I just saw Bad Bunny. So I was just there a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, me too.
Yes, that was an experience.
Experience. That's what everybody was saying.
But everybody, listen, we're going to be talking about this 20, 30 years and be like, remember for that Bad Bunny residency, that was the bomb. Yeah, it was incredible.
Well, I love that. So transitioning from your personal experience on the island and your Latina culture now into your corporate culture, what brought you into corporate America? And, how was those early experiences? How did they really shape you? Because you talk about that a lot in the book.
Yeah. I mean, I start the book with a very sad ass story that happened to me my first year out of college. That was when it happens, which is bien triste because it's not like it took 10 years for me to have my first microaggression. It was like, no, out of the gate. You're going to have it right out of the gate. I studied technology, like computer information systems when I was in college. By the way, I give my mother credit for picking that major because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, I don't know. And she was like, estudia computers. Ahí parece que va a haber dinero. I was like, okay. She called it. And this was like 1980 something. And she was like, yeah, go do that. I was like, all right, let's do that. So I studied information systems and I minored in religious studies. I went to a Catholic college in the Bronx. And so that was like an interesting minor that I had, but it kind of comes up again later. But yeah, my first job was as a computer consultant. I was like I guess they called it like a technology consultant or something like that. And I worked for like a really big consulting firm. And, I was, fish out of water. I was like one of the few. I remember there was like this manager that was Latina. She was Puerto Rican. Mm-hmm. And I remember like every time I saw her, I was like, Mercedes, like, my eyes would light up because I was like, she's the only one. Like there were a couple of people that took me under their wings. I remember this one guy from Guyana that he was like a little bit more senior to me and he could see that I was like struggling. So he was like, hey, it's like this. And, I remember I had another woman in my start group. She was a Black woman. She was a little bit older than me. She had her MBA. And like when I went to my training and like my onboarding, she was like, yeah, this is how it is. And I had a lot of people that looked out for me. So I'm grateful for that. But I also had lots of people that questioned me and my abilities very early on. I even talk about how I went on a job interview. And this was when I was graduating from college. And that partner, because it was a partner in a firm, asked me about my SAT scores, which were 4 years before, because you take your SATs when you're graduating from high school. So then I was already graduating from college. I had like a 3.98 GPA. I had done all the things, 4 years of internships. I was like student council representative and vice president of this other thing. And I had a very nice resume. And me sacó falta, he was like, why were your SAT scores so low? He's like, you have a great GPA. Why were your SAT scores so low? And I told him what I knew at that time. I said, my understanding is that those SAT scores disproportionately disadvantage people of color. So that's how I would explain it, because I never had, in my school, we didn't have SAT prep. You know, you had to pay for that. So I took the SAT score cold. Y cuidado que I got what I got, you know, because I never saw an SAT in my life. I just went in cold, and there was people that took it that was studying for a whole year before. So, but that's for people who have privilege and money, and like schools that provide those services. You know, my school, my public school, high school did not do that. So anyway, that was like a one, like really like not cool thing that happened. But I had a very long career. I was in corporate for like 25 years. So I worked at a couple of banks. I was always in tech, and then I ended up being always customer facing, because I'm very like extroverted. I like being with people. I like my dad. My dad was like that too. So once people saw that, they were like, "Oh, esta le gusta hablar." They were like, "All right, we're gonna put you in front of the customers. You got to sell to them, or just be like a account manager and like support them, make them feel good, make them feel seen. You know, support them, get their input on products." Like I did product management work, and I would like have like, you know, customers that I would like ask them for input on like things we were building. But I did a lot of sales also, and business development and customer success work, and it was all customer facing. So, and I was often the only customer facing member in my group. So it would be like white guy, Hady. And, you know, when I was in Puerto Rico, that's fine, or in Miami, because most of my clients were Latino. So it was like, oh, okay, cool. They have a Latina on the team. Thank God, because she knows what we're about. But when I was in like Iowa and, you know, some of these other places, this is another thing that didn't make the book. South Carolina. Because South Carolina, you already know. Yo me fui para allá. They were like, "And who are you?" And I said, I'm Hady, the person you've been dealing with. En aquel tiempo yo
Okay.
Hady, I wasn't Hady Smith, but let's just say I was Hady Smith. So that's the name they knew. And they're like, "And who are you?" And I was like, "I'm Fulana." And they were like, "Oh, don't you know?" They like ignored me the rest of the meeting. And then like after that, the account manager was like, told my manager they don't want Hady on the account. And my manager called me in, and he said, "This has nothing to do with you, but you're not going to be working on that account anymore." And I knew it was because they were racist.
Yeah. I think that that's something that's really not, like you said, these are microaggressions, and it's not really spoken about. And that's why I love the book, because it does touch on it, about being the only one in the room. And many times, as a Latino who's climbed the corporate ladder and you've made it, you're many times the only one in the room.
Yes.
And if you're a woman, it's double.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, and if you have curly hair, and if you visibly like have features, like my hair, I had a guy, this also didn't make the book. I'm thinking of all the stories now. I'm like, boy, I got so many stories.
This is part 2.
I'm traumatized, muchacha. This one guy was like, "You gonna comb your hair before a customer meeting?" And it looked more or less like it looks now. Not for nothing, but I washed my hair today. I have wavy hair, so it looks wavy. That's the look, you know? So he was like, "You gonna comb your hair before the meeting?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" And he was just, "Oh, I'm just playing with you." And I was like, "No, don't play with me like that." But you know, there's always un granito of truth to that. You know what happened to me as a result of that, Krystal? I spent the next 3 or 4 years getting my hair blown out at the Dominican place, because I didn't want anybody to tell me that again.
No, and that resonates with me, because I remember when I first started in corporate, I used to wear, and I still do to this day, a really tight bun on the top of my head. And I like lay my edges down a little bit. And I always, in the beginning, felt self-conscious. Like, is that hairstyle too ghetto, not professional enough, you know, a little too ethnic? Like, and it's sad that you have to think like that, because you know that, you know, inevitably they're judging you off of those things.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking.
Not off of your performance, not off of your ideas or anything like that. That's what they're thinking. Whereas, you know, you could be sitting next to another woman, and she could just be, you know, not Latina. She could be a white woman, and they don't care what her hair looks like. They don't care.
Yeah, so that doesn't como que it doesn't come up. It doesn't nos saca en cuenta. Those are little things. They're little things, but listen, it's like they say, they like cut you. They're like little micro cuts. And by the time you live through a day or a week of work, you know, you all cut up, because you've had to experience these little things here and there. It's not fair also, because we're already working twice as hard. We're already making half of what everybody else makes. And then now you gotta deal with these microaggressions. I had another situation where I walked into a meeting, and my customers, so to give you the context, we were taking the train there. So New York City, taking the train. my coworkers, it was all men and they were in their shoes, but they got flats. I had tacos. So I was like, I'm not wearing my tacos on the train. I'm not trying to get fallen on my butt. So I had
Right.
like sandals, but cute sandals. And I had, my toes were done. So it was presentable. So, but I had my shoes in my bag and I'm like, if necessary, I'll put on my shoes when I get there. So, but I made the decision not to put on my shoes when I got there because we were sitting around a table and no one could even see my feet. Don't you know the customer before the meeting started was like, are you going to change your shoes? Now, I don't know if he would have done that to any woman, but he did it to me. And then you know what? My coworker, who incidentally was a black man, but, was a person of color, was like, I told you to bring your shoes and to change before you walked in. Like you were like, that was your fault that you didn't like, you should have handled that before you sat at that table. And so
Better.
like, I didn't even get any support. Like, I was like, okay, like all of y'all just walk in like nothing, but I got to go the extra mile to be flipping my shoes on and off and doing all the extra things. And then I didn't even have support. And I was, it was disappointing to not have support because that's like, I was very much singled out unnecessarily. And I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you, I definitely think it was because I was a woman, but potentially even more than that. And it was really disappointing for me. So many stories like that. And it's like, and then you still got to focus on your work and being like amazing, because if you're not amazing, guess what? You're not going to be there. So you got to be amazing on top of all of that.
Excellent, right? So that leads me into another question I had for you, which is with all of these things that have happened, all of these experiences you've had, how did you learn to reclaim your voice? And especially when it came to bias or discrimination and people trying to silence it. How did you find that strength within you? Because it's hard.
Yeah. I think for a long time I didn't. So I would say that for a long time I was like, why is this so hard? I felt also there was a part of me that just accepted, like, this is what it is. This is what your experience is going to be like, Hady, as a Latina in corporate. Like, there's just not a lot we can do about it. And I felt that was a little victim-y, to be honest. I didn't love that feeling because it puts you in a position where you're powerless. And I was
Right.
like, I can encontrarle la vuelta. Like, I got to find a way to still thrive. Maybe I'm not going to be like the CEO of a company, but perhaps there are things that I can do to still get some promotions, to make some more money, to be in important rooms, to make key decisions, to be aligned with important customers. I want all of those things. I was very ambitious and I wanted all of those things and they weren't happening for me. So I was like, I think I'm going to have to say something. And, I don't remember like the specific moment. I think it happened over time
Yeah.
that I just spoke up and I was like, I'm going to say something because this is horrible. Like, this feels unfair, or B, like, I really feel like I don't agree what they're saying now. Remember, I told you that I was in a lot of customer facing positions. So we would have strategy calls all the time about how we were going to handle that customer. And oftentimes, like the guys were like, hey, we're going to do it this way. Like, we really feel this and this. And I was like, but I was part of this other conversation and here's what I heard. And I feel like maybe we could do it this other way because I definitely heard this other thing. And I was very good at that, at like noticing and listening to things that maybe other people didn't hear. I was always taking notes. I would, because yo estaba calladita en una esquina. So I was like taking notes and I'm like, no, I was like, but you know what? Fulano said this. And I didn't see the other person object when Fulano said that. So I actually feel that might be an opportunity. And I feel like people were like, in the beginning, they were like, who asked you? And where does this come from? And then I think over time, they're like, Hady knows because Hady be listening. I got a reputation for being someone who actually was a good listener in those calls.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I think, over time I felt I didn't want to be helpless anymore. I didn't want to be powerless. And I just said, I'm going to do it. Me salga, good, bad, or ugly. I'm going to just try little by little to kind of work my way out of this. And I'm not going to say that I'm perfect now and I know how to navigate every situation because I don't. But what I will say is that I feel more comfortable and I'm more confident than I've ever been in my life. And I think confidence plays a pretty big role in this. You got to believe that you are worthy. You got to believe that you're
That's
enough. And you
it.
just got to take the chance, be bold, be brave, and step forward.
Yeah. Do you think in writing this book, you've kind of healed some of your own wounds and helped yourself along the journey as well? 'Cause I know it's for the future, and we'll talk about how you balance that. But do you think, it's very deeply personal, which I also love.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like, this book has been my book. Besides like my editor and publisher, no one's looked at this book yet, really, some early readers, but I really don't know what people think of it yet. So like, thank you for the feedback, because I don't know what to think of it yet, like in terms of like how other people see it. But I do think that, you talk about healing. I don't know if healing is the word I would use, but I think it was a wonderful opportunity to reflect and be like, this is maybe not the totality of my experience, but it's a representative of my experience. And I love that it's very relatable, because when I talk to people, they'll mention something. And I'm like, oh, that's in my book. Or they'll be like, this other thing. I'm like, that's in my book. So I'm like, I got it. I got the experiences. Like I can 100% say with a lot of confidence that there's going to be stories that people relate to, because I already, just talking to people as I've been writing it, I could already tell that, there's like, yup, me too. That happened to me, or something like that happened to me, or that happened to somebody I know. So that part I feel really good about. So I'm excited to see like what else people tell me about, once they read it. I'm really excited about that
Is
part.
there anything you hope that people, especially Latinas and women of color, walk away from after reading the book?
Well, I definitely want people to feel
Or walk
seen.
away with?
Yeah, I want people to feel seen. I want people to know that they're not alone, that like it's not in your head. And I think that in and of itself, that
That
validation is very important, because for a long time, when you the only one, you're like, did I just hear that right? Because that didn't feel good, but like, is that in my head? Tanta veces, so many times that I was like, I would be mad, but I'm like, why am I mad? Is that something to be mad about? Like, am I being too sensitive? Because that's what you're led to believe. Because people be like, I was just joking. It's like, but like, these are not things we should be
or I
joking
didn't mean
about.
it like that.
Yeah. Oh, why you taking it that way? That's, I'm sorry. It's too bad you're offended by that. It's like, well, no, but like the thing you said is like an uninformed, uneducated thing. And you shouldn't really be saying things like that. So when I came in corporate, because I joined the corporate world in 1992, I don't even think the word microaggression existed. So like we didn't even have a name for the thing. I feel happy for the people that are joining the corporate space now, because there's a lot more language to describe the feeling. So you're like, that was a microaggression. You didn't respect my intersectional identity, or you didn't see the totality of who I am. Or, that sounds like white privilege, or, like we have words to describe what these things are. 30 years ago, that we didn't have the words. We just had the feelings. And we were like, I don't even know what that is, but that doesn't feel good. And so I'm just so much more, I'm happy for the people that are kind of coming through now, because there's language for it. And I feel, anyway, back to your question, I want them to feel seen. I want them to feel valued and celebrated. And I want them to know that, that the things are not in their head, and that they're not imagining it, that these things are real. But also, more importantly, there are ways to navigate it. You don't have to be the victim. You don't have to get stuck and stay stuck. Don't give up. Don't give up. Whatever you do, you deserve to be there too. I talk about that. I belong, you belong, we belong. So we better act like it.
That's right. I love that. And I think that when I started to read the beginning of the book a little bit, and even just the intro, that's for me, it was like someone else gets it. Because I've been in corporate now for the last 10 years, but I remember jumping into corporate and I just felt like a fish out of water. I felt like everyone was smarter than me. Everyone was more talented than me. They had better connections than me. Who was I to be there? All of those
Yeah.
things. You spoke about mentorship earlier, and I think, those people in your lives are such gems, because I had white men sit me down and tell me, which I'm always forever grateful for, they're no better than you. And if you want that salary, you're worth it, you go in there and you ask for it,
That's right.
those sort of things. And it was like, wow, like it gave me permission to validate my feelings, right? That I was being treated unfairly, but then to be able to speak up. So I think that, again, when I saw your book, I was like, oh my God, like you said, it's real. It's not in your head. It's real. Other people are going through it, and we have to start talking about it. We have to start bringing
Yep.
awareness to it and addressing it. And it's not that you're a sensitive person, and it's not any of those things. And I think it's also honoring who we are as Latinos. We are loud. We are passionate. We have so many ideas. We're very creative by nature. We're intelligent people, and we deserve a voice at the table. We
Yeah.
deserve to be treated just like everyone else. And, we have to keep speaking about those things.
Yeah. And sometimes we're the ones silencing ourselves. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off,
me.
Krystal.
No, that
Yeah,
was me.
but
I was silencing myself. It was
yeah,
really
that's the part that,
self-talk.
yeah, we can control that part. there's always going to be, the system is not working the way it it's a could be working. It should be working. It's working the way it was designed to work. And that means that certain people have privileges and certain people are benefiting more. So it's a broken system. So that's one. Facts. On top of that, there's not as many of us. Also facts. Then we bring some of these limiting beliefs that only are harmful to ourselves, so but that is something we can control, because we can shed those beliefs and say, you know what, actually, I don't look prettier when I'm quiet. Not at all. I'm going to actually speak out. I'm going to advocate for myself. I'm going to self-promote. That's the other thing. We don't self-promote enough. We're like, oh, you got to be humble. Eso no se ve feo. Mejor no haga eso, que es, esa se cree que mejor que nadie, and there's a way to do it. There are some people that que se le van la mano, que se pasan, There are some people que se pasan when they're self-promoting. But there is a way to self-promote in a way that I think is balanced, and that you could still feel like good about it, and you could be like, listen, these are the things I've done. Here's what I've accomplished. Here's what I've achieved. And here's where I see myself going next. Can you help me get there? What kind of projects do I need to get on so I could keep on this path? That's the conversation everybody's having with their manager, and we should be too. But I don't think often enough we are having those conversations. We're just like letting this see what way the wind blows. And it's like, a ver lo que pasa. It's like, no, a ver lo que pasa, no va a pasar nada. So we gotta take the bull by the horns.
No, 100%. But that's what I love the message about the book. It's very much empowering. It's very much like, no, like you said earlier, you deserve a place here. You have a voice, you deserve a place here. And it's up to us to use it. It's that self-talk, saying, no, I deserve this. Let me tell you my idea and you're going to listen to me. Let me tell you why you need to listen.
That's right. Yeah, sometimes we have to disagree with people. Sometimes we have to force people to check in with us.
Yeah,
like if I'm part of this customer team, I don't care who you are. Like, you need to check with me, because actually I'm the one that's interfacing with that customer the most. And I know you have a great idea that you think is the most amazing idea ever, but actually I know that customer really well. So my voice matters too, and my opinion matters too. And I could disagree with you and say, I actually don't think that's the way we should go, because this is what I heard and this is what I know. And here's the receipts. This is the evidence that that's not the direction they really want to move in. And I think it's a mistake for us to go that way. I've had that conversation with people on my team, and they respect me. It's the same decision I made to not say anything. I needed to also make the decision to say something, and to continue to say something, even when people were like, looked at me and were like, why are you talking? And say the thing anyway. So I wish that for my audience. I really hope that the readers walk away feeling inspired and motivated to really step into their power, because it's meant to be a book that empowers you.
I definitely think the message comes through clearly. I can't wait for other people to read it. I'm down to do a book club, because I think that's going to be amazing.
If you have it, invite me so I could come and hear firsthand what everybody's saying.
So when is the official launch? I know it's out.
So it could be online. It could be at your favorite independent bookstore. It's available in paperback, in hardcover. There's going to be an ebook online as well. So you could download it to your Kindle. And then most importantly, and the one I'm most excited about, is the audiobook. So I recorded it, and I wrote the book. I wrote the book how I write. So it ended up being a really fun book to read out loud. And I'm very sassy in my way of approaching it. So I think the audiobook is going to be that's going to be my favorite one. But I actually just listened to it, because I finished recording it, and I just listened to it before we uploaded it. And I was very happy with it. I was like, this is legit. So I hope people will maybe buy the audiobook and maybe the Kindle, or the paperback and the audiobook, or some combination of the two, because I think the cover is beautiful. So you definitely want to make sure you get this cover somewhere in your life.
So beautiful.
And then I think you should listen to the book, because I think, and then you could play that back as you need to. Play the chapter that really resonates, or the one you need to hear. I give lots of examples of how to do things in there. So if you're like, wait, how do I do that again? Go back to the chapter. So I feel like the audiobook would be really helpful if you're someone who's still on that path to learning, and you need to reinforce some of those learnings.
I think it's going to be a book that people read and they're going to share. I think once you read it, we all know another Latina or another person of color who's gone through this, right? We don't have to silently suffer. We can join together. And I think this book is a great tool to be able to link us and to be able to share our stories, like that through book clubs and conversations about the book and that sort of thing. So I'm very excited for that part of it.
Yes, me too. I check it out. Calladita No More.
Yes, September 15th. We're excited.
Yeah,
Look
first day
out
of
for a
Hispanic
book
Heritage Month.
club. Yeah, and if anybody here is interested in connecting with Hady, please reach out to her. I think this is like an amazing training tool as well, something that could definitely be implemented as a resource for certain departments. So let's put it out there to the universe.
Yes, manifesting. I talk about manifesting in the book too. There's a whole chapter on like staying
Love
positive
that.
and steadfast. And I talk about manifestation. Like that is powerful because your mindset drives how you behave. So if you got an open mindset and you're like open to receiving and you're not stuck in that like victim mentality, I think that that kind of allows the universe to really work its magic. We got
Yes.
some bruja stuff going on in the book too, but that's manifestation stuff is powerful stuff.
So very Puerto Rican of you. I love it. Thank you so much for being on this episode. I appreciate your heart. I appreciate what you're doing for the community, and I can't wait to talk more about it. September 15th, guys.